Selections are a bit of an abstract concept, especially since a selection never seems to exist in a tangible form. And yet, in the context of pixels, a selection is indeed a tangible object. In this lesson, I'll demonstrate the concept of selections and how they actually exist within Photoshop. In the process, I'd like to clarify a common point of confusion. Quite often I find that photographers are under the impression that a selection exists as part of a given image layer. In fact, photographers are often led to believe that a selection actually becomes part of a pixel layer, or that a selection can only be created if a particular image layer is active. Selections are not a part of an image layer, but that doesn't mean a selection isn't tangible within Photoshop. It just means that the reality of a selection's existence is often hidden from view. Let's take a look at this little mystery. We'll start with a selection. I'll go ahead and load a selection I've already saved by choosing Select, Load Selection from the menu. This selection is called Pebbles, so with that option chosen, I'll click OK, and as you can see, I now have a selection. This selection is presented as an animated dashed line that represents the boundary of the selection. This presentation is often referred to as marching ants, because it resembles a line of ants marching around on your image. This outline actually represents the boundary between pixels that are at least 50% selected and those that are less than 50% selected. But how does Photoshop actually think about selections? I'll show you. I'm going to switch into Quick Mask mode, which is a different way of viewing our selection. Areas of the image that are selected show as a normal pixel. Areas of the image that are not selected show with a color overlay. I can switch back and forth between these two modes, Quick Mask mode and the normal selection mode, by clicking the button at the bottom of the toolbox. When we're in Quick Mask mode, we can actually view our selection as what's referred to as an alpha channel, or another channel that's not one of the color-bearing channels. I'll go to the Channels panel to show you exactly what that looks like. You can see I have my composite RGB channel and individual red, green, and blue channels. I also have the saved Pebbles selection, which I had loaded at the beginning of this lesson. But in addition, I have a temporary alpha channel. This alpha channel represents the quick mask, and it gives us a clue about how Photoshop is thinking about the selection. The shades of gray on this temporary channel indicate selection. Pixels that are white are selected, and pixels that are black are deselected. Any shade of gray represents a pixel that is partially selected. Note that the Quick Mask thumbnail is an exact match of the Pebbles thumbnail. That's because we're thinking about the selection in the same way as the alpha channel that saved the selection. Let's go back to the selection itself. I'll press Q to switch from Quick Mask mode to my normal selection mode, and I'm going to go back to my Layers panel and create a targeted adjustment by adding an adjustment layer. In this case, I'll make it a Curves adjustment. And as you can see, when I add my Curves adjustment layer, I get a thumbnail that looks awfully familiar. This is the exact same thing as the alpha channel that was used to save my selection and the temporary alpha channel that represented Quick Mask mode. It's an exact match of the saved selection. This layer mask enables me to target my adjustment so that the Curves adjustment will only affect, in this case, the pebbles. A layer mask is related to a selection in many ways. For starters, a selection is often used to create a layer mask, but as you can see, a layer mask is the same basic construct as an alpha channel. In other words, a selection, a quick mask, an alpha channel, and a layer mask are all really the same thing. They all represent a way of identifying the selection or visibility of pixels or effects within an image. In all cases, white represents a selected or visible pixel, black represents a deselected or invisible pixel, and a shade of gray represents a partially selected or partially visible pixel. As you can see, selections are quite tangible in the context of an image, especially when you examine how Photoshop keeps track of selections. And as you understand exactly how Photoshop is thinking about selections, you'll be better equipped to think about selections yourself.